You ever stand in front of a painting, or listen to a piece of music, or try to read a poem and just feel locked out? Like there's this secret language that everyone else gets but not you? Yeah, that's a super common feeling. The greatest art can feel, well, intimidating. But what if I told you all you need is the right set of keys?
So yeah, let's get right into this, because that feeling is totally normal. The literary analyst Lak Raj Sharma, he just nails it. He says poetry can feel difficult and occult, and that word, occult, wow, it sounds like some kind of hidden mystical knowledge, right? But the thing is, he argues, it's not magic. It's really just a matter of knowing what to look for.
So, for this explainer, we're going to take on a big one. Our challenge? John Milton's 17th century poem, Lycidas. Now, this thing is considered one of the most perfect short poems in English, period. But it's also notoriously dense and difficult. So let's think of it like a beautiful, intricate lockbox. We know there's treasure inside, we just need to figure out how to open it.
And that really brings us to the main event, doesn't it? How do we even start with a piece of art like this? What are the tools we can use to find the meaning? And maybe the bigger question is, why even bother? What's the payoff for all that effort?
Well, the answer starts with a simple, really practical toolkit. We're going to borrow a framework from our first source, the analyst we just mentioned, Lak Raj Sharma. He lays out this awesome set of 5 keys that can help unlock pretty much any poem you throw at him.
And here they are. Sharma calls them salient factors. Basically, you start with form. What kind of poem is this? Is it a love poem, a story, a song? Simple enough. Next, you ask, who's the speaker? Who's talking to us? Once you know that, you can figure out the tone. What's their attitude? Are they angry, sad, totally thrilled? Then you look at the imagery, the pictures the words paint. And finally, all of that together leads you right to the theme, the big central idea. It's a really straightforward 5-step approach.
All right, so let's put these keys to the test, shall we? We're going to use this toolkit on our lockbox, Lycidas, and see what happens.
Okay, first key, form. Using Sharma's own definition here, we can immediately see that Lycidas is an elegy. And what's an elegy? It's a poem of mourning, a poem about death. Boom! Right away, that's a massive clue. We know, before we even get deep into it, that this poem is going to be about grief and loss.
And look at this. The poem spells it right out for us. Just a few lines in, Milton says it plain as day. For Lycidas is dead. It's so direct, so clear, it perfectly fits the form of an elegy. This is a poem about a young, promising guy who died.
Okay, so let's grab our next key, tone. Now, you'd think a poem about mourning would just be sad, right? And it is, at first, but here's where things get really interesting. The tone in this poem is all over the place. It shifts and changes in some pretty dramatic ways.
Check this out. At one point, the speaker imagines St. Peter showing up, and let me tell you, his tone is not mournful. He is absolutely furious. He's just railing against the corrupt church, calling its leaders blind mouths who aren't taking care of their people. So this is the key takeaway here. The poem's tone swings from this really personal grief for a friend all the way to public outrage about the whole state of the world. This is way more complex than just a sad poem. All right, so Sharma's toolkit is great. It helps us see the nuts and bolts, right? We can see the form, we can track the tone, we can start to see these themes of grief and corruption popping up. We've basically learned how to take the poem apart. But that still doesn't answer our other big question. Why is this thing considered a work of genius? What makes it so powerful?
For that answer, we've got to bring in our second source, an analysis by Womack. And his whole argument is that the genius of Lycidas isn't that it's simple and perfect. Nope. It's in its absolutely breathtaking complexity. He actually calls it a kind of high-wire act, a daredevil poem.
Womack has this amazing way of putting it. He says, great works of art are daredevils. Think about that. They flirt with disaster. They almost fall apart. They seem like they're about to become a total mess. But somehow they always hold it together. There's always this core of order and purpose. And he says Lycidas is the ultimate example of this. It feels like what he calls an accumulation of magnificent fragments, just always on the brink of chaos.
And this is where his point gets really wild. The experts can't even agree on the poem's basic structure. You've got one guy, Arthur Barker, who says it's made of 3 simple repeating parts. Then another guy, J. Martin Evans, comes along and says, no, it's 2 complex mirrored parts. And the craziest thing? They're both right. The poem is so complex it supports both of these completely different structures at the exact same time. Womack has a great name for this, overlapping patterns.
So what does all this complexity actually do to you as a reader? Well, it's kind of a paradox. Womack points out that this dense layering of patterns gives you this deep feeling of rightness, inevitability, and incontrovertible truth. Because it's ordered in so many different ways all at once, it ends up feeling more solid, more real than a simpler poem ever could. It's like it contains an entire universe of structure.
And this complexity, it goes all the way down to a single line, even a single phrase. Womack calls these little hidden meanings shadow assertions. Let's go back to that angry line from St. Peter. As you're reading that, scarce themselves know how to hold, just for a split second, before your brain gets to the next words, a sheep hook, it sounds like he's saying they don't know how to hold themselves, like they have no self-control or self-awareness.
It's just a flicker, right? A little ghost in the machine of the sentence. But it's there. And the entire poem is packed with these moments. They add all these extra layers of meaning that make the whole thing richer, but they never scream for your attention. It's just a masterclass in controlling ambiguity. But wait, this is where Womack's analysis gets really mind-bending. He points out that sometimes the poem's power comes from lines that, well, if you take them literally, they're just nonsense, but it's like a glorious, powerful kind of nonsense.
Okay, look at this line. The speaker is imagining Lycidas's body somewhere in England, and Womack points out, think about it, you can't literally sleep by a fable. A fable isn't a place, it's a story. And to make it even stranger, this fable about Belarus, Milton seems to have just made it up for this one line. Logically, it makes zero sense. And yet, it works. It feels powerful. Womack's argument is that lines like this let our brains do the impossible. They let us understand something that's literally incomprehensible. We can hold an impossible idea and still make sense of it. So let's pull all this together. On one hand, we've got this practical toolkit. On the other, we've got this idea of daredevil artistry. What's the point? Why does analyzing a poem like this even matter?
Well, here's the big takeaway. Sharma's keys, they let us open that lockbox and see all the little gears and levers inside. They show us how the poem is built. But Womack's analysis, that shows us why those gears create such a feeling of awe. It shows us the ghost in the machine. And what this proves is that analysis isn't about solving a puzzle and finding the one right answer. It's about deepening our appreciation for the craft, for the absolute daring and the deep, complex beauty of it all.
So in the end, unlocking a difficult poem like this isn't about beating it or solving it. It's about learning to speak its language. When we look for its patterns, even the ones that contradict each other, and when we're okay with those little flashes of glorious nonsense, we're actually training ourselves to see the incredible order that can hide inside of chaos. And that gives us a whole new way of experiencing not just this poem, but maybe all art. And that leaves us with one last big idea. Remember, Lycidas is a poem about trying to make sense of a chaotic, tragic death. Womack suggests that by showing us how to find this deep order in all its complexity, the poem gives us a little taste of what it feels like to have a superhuman mental capacity. It's like practice for finding meaning when things feel meaningless. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can that practice, learning to find the order in the chaos of art, actually help us face the chaos in our own lives?